We are live, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. This is the live stream discussion for Surviving the Silence. We thank everybody for joining us. My name is Alan East. I'm the programmer for the Desperado LGBTQ Film Festival in Phoenix. Um, that's my job for our organization. Julie Roberts is going to be the moderator for this event, as well as Ryan Starzyk from Phoenix Pride. And so I'm going to hand it off to Julie. And okay, you're up.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. And thank you to the Desperado Film Festival. I've worked with the festival for 7 or 8 years now. I'm a community organizer and an activist and basically a general rabble rouser here in the Phoenix area. But I love the festival and I love all the opportunities to meet everyone and get to hear everything. And it's just amazing how small our world has become in recent months. So I want to say a couple of thank yous and then kind of set a couple of caveats for us for this morning, and then we'll turn it over to Ryan and all of you. First of all, we really definitely need to thank Paradise Valley Community College, where this festival is generally hosted every year in the second or third weekend of October. And of course, we're not able to be there this year, but this has worked out pretty well for us. Also, the entire Maricopa County Community College District is so supportive of our community. And then the Phoenix Pride organization here, which is a huge festival, and they're huge. They have a foundation that makes them be huge supporters of scholarships and things like that in the Valley. Phoenix is a really up and coming place to go, you guys. So come on down. I just want to say a couple of caveats for ourselves, which is must be a nonpartisan conversation because we are in the community college district, and that needs to be nonpartisan for them. So say what happened, say how you felt, go from that, but please, let's keep some parties out of it for now. The other thing, we have so many people with us, and we have such a rather short period of time. If you could keep your answers to 3-4 sentences, 30 to 45 seconds, that'll help us. Ryan will be pretty much in charge of that as we go through here. The other thing is, we're going to go around here this morning and let everybody introduce themselves like I did. Please call me Julie. I'd like for you all to say, who you are, how you want to be talked about, or how your name should be spoken, and then tell us just a sentence or two about yourselves. Okay, we'll kind of start. Alan and I have already spoken out. So I'll turn it over to Ryan, and then Ryan, just send it on down to the next person, okay?
Appreciate that wonderful introduction. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the Desperado Film Festival, and I want to thank Paradise Valley Community College. This is such a remarkable opportunity for me personally, as somebody who's been with Phoenix Pride for over 3 years now, and I currently serve as the vice president, because I was in the military. And I was in the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, before the policy was repealed. And so this conversation is vital to give everybody perspective on how things once were, even before I was in, before 9/11. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and pass it off to Mary next.
Hi, this is Mary Newcombe. Call me Mary. I was Grethe Cammermeyer's lawyer in her litigation against the government for their attempt to withdraw her federal recognition. And we were lucky to see that litigation win.
Okay, so let's go ahead and turn it over to Colonel Pat and Barb.
I'm Colonel Pat. Good to be here, and I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say. Thank you.
And I'm her proud wife, who is the wind beneath her wings, and now she's the wind beneath my wings.
Rock stars, definitely. And next we'll go ahead and introduce Colonel Grethe.
Hi, I'm Grethe Cammermeyer. I really was represented by Mary Newcombe, who guided me through my process of coming out to the military, and then ended up being involved with Pat Thompson, who was president of my discharge board.
And next, we'll go ahead and introduce Secretary Fanning.
Hi, Eric Fanning here. Call me Eric, please. I'm a longtime friend of filmmaker Cindy Abel. I was an appointee, a junior appointee in the Clinton Pentagon when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was created, and then an appointee in the all 8 years of the Obama Pentagon, culminating as Secretary of the Army. Good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Now, next, I'd like to introduce our awesome, amazing director, Cindy Abel.
Thank you so much, Ryan, and thanks everyone. I am Cindy L. Abel, and please call me Cindy. And I'm the one who's had the honor of bringing these amazing rock stars, as Ryan put it together, to share this really incredible story.
And next, I'd like to introduce Specialist Hernandez.
Hi there. My name is Aime Hernandez. You can call me Aime. I'm currently in the Army National Guard, and I'm sure my experience has been very different compared to a lot of you. So.
And next, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Doug Mings from the City of Phoenix Mayor's Office.
Good morning. My name is Doug Mings. I'm a Community Relations Director for Mayor Gallego and their LGBTQ liaison, and work with the LGBTQ community here in the Phoenix area.
And next, I'd like to introduce Ryan Wentzel from the National Guard and also with Paradise Valley Community College.
How's it going? My name is Ryan Wentzel. I'm the technical director here at the theater that we usually do Desperado at. I'm a staff sergeant in the United States Marines. And I just want to say thanks to Desperado for being supportive of the veterans for so many years. And I appreciate them asking me to be part of this. So thank you.
And I'd also like to introduce Mr. Alan East.
Sorry, I had myself muted. Hello, everybody. We've been doing this film festival since 2010, started in 2009 as a student organization, and it's just grown from a day and a half to 3 days to now 2 weeks. I don't know where that came from. So we just got a little overly ambitious, and now we're going online and being virtual with you in this discussion. It's been, it's wonderful. It's been, really an adventure to be able to bring this film festival to the whole state of Arizona and this discussion to really everybody worldwide who wants to watch it. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for being here. And Cindy, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and ask you the first question. And so how did you come up with this film? And why did you want to do it? And what were some of the motivating factors and obstacles?
I came up with this film when I first heard Colonel Pat Thompson and Barbara Brass share their story at Sierra College in 2013. I had just screened my first film, Breaking Through, about openly LGBT elected officials the night previously. And we started a conversation, and I knew from what they were sharing with me that I definitely wanted to learn more. And what really drew me in first and foremost, Ryan, was their love story. You know, how did two people stay together for 30 plus years, period? And then on top of it, when for their own personal safety, as well as for Pat's profession, they had to often, even in their own home, pretend that they were actually not a couple. So how does one do that? And then as I started to learn about some of the unknown history that has now shaped present day military policy, I thought, wow, this is an incredible story that needs to be told. And then the further I got involved with them, the more I saw that not only is this a love story and its history, but it's also a very contemporary story about people who want to change the world and are taking responsibility for the world that we live in today.
And that's where it starts. It starts with that desire to make a difference. Every great outcome has started with some sort of pain, unfortunately. But the story itself from Colonel Pat and with Miss Brass and with Colonel Grethe, the story itself is so magical because it's where Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal started. It's really the inception of it, how we were able to get past it, and how love survived even the most difficult of circumstances. So Colonel Pat and Colonel Grethe, I mean, what a journey. What a journey. You both served. Thank you for your service. And you made it to Colonel, even in the face of so much adversity. This is a question for both of you. Did being a lesbian influence your decision to join the military?
Well, why don't I start. I didn't know that I was a lesbian. I hadn't figured that out till I was about 45 and had already had a long career in the military, and realized that after I met Diane, that I realized that I was a lesbian. And when the opportunity rose, ended up being truthful in a top secret security clearance and said that I was a lesbian because I'd had that aha moment. And that was sort of the beginning of the end of my military career, but also the opportunity to try to challenge the military's anti-gay policy prior to Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Well, I had a brother who was killed as a Navy pilot in World War II, and so I wanted to serve. My other brother was not allowed to serve. My mother did not want him in the military, and I thought, well, he can't go, but I can go. So that was one of my incentives. And no, I didn't know that I was a lesbian until probably my senior year in nursing school. And that was before I joined the military.
Now, once you realized and started to identify your authentic self, did it influence in any way whether or not you wanted to, was that like your wow moment where you said, I need to get out? Or did you say, you know what, I believe in this, I believe in the service, and I'm going to keep fighting to stay here?
I always have believed that the job that we do, the work that we do, is more important than who we love. And so that was utmost in my mind during that time. In 1973, the Psychological Association decided that being homosexual was not a mental illness anymore. So I was happy about that.
We were cured.
Of course.
For me, in my time in the service, there had been changes in the opportunity for women because people had taken a stand. Women originally could not be married, then they could not have children, and people stood up and the policies were changed. And so when I realized that I was going to be discharged from the military, I could have retired, but instead, had the delusion of grandeur that I would be the one that would change military policy. And fortunately, I was able to then get an attorney team. Mary was my person to sort of guide me through that process. So it was a matter of principle and also to try to change the policy.
And Colonel Grethe, when I saw you coming out of the hearing after Colonel Thompson had the board hearing with you, and I saw you getting into your car and you were starting your car and looking into the camera, and there was this look in your face. It was a look of determination. I didn't see somebody defeated. It was determination. Could you talk a little bit more about that moment?
Well, it certainly didn't feel like determination. It felt more like my entire career had been negated. And I cried all the way home and then took off my uniform and hid it in my closet so I wouldn't have to look at it.
Wow. Grethe wasn't the only one crying. I cried all the way back home also, and then after I got back home.
Well, I had no idea of the pressure that I was putting you under until many years later. It was, I couldn't even have dealt with that part of it. It was mostly the disappointment that where I had thought that the military took care of its own, it really didn't do that.
And, thankfully there's been some progression in how things have changed today. Future generations will hopefully be better off with some other changes that I won't get into because we have to be nonpartisan. But I want to thank you both for your service. I do. And I'm going to come back to you with a question in just a moment. Now, Secretary Fanning, or Eric, sorry. I wanted to ask you, would you describe the policy evolution as you saw it since you served in the DoD for quite a while, in your experience, and where do you see the future going when it comes to LGBTQ and equality in the military?
Well, I think, first of all, there's sort of multiple struggles, I guess you would say, going on, overlapping. And what Pat and Grethe had to deal with is not just being lesbians, so LGBTQ, but also women. I mean, a lot of work has taken place to open up opportunities and try and equalize opportunities for women in the military, still ongoing. And so they had that struggle as well. And it's interesting to hear Grethe talk about her lawyer team, because there are lawyer teams right now working on behalf of transgender Americans who are serving and who want to serve. And so there are layers and series of struggles to open up opportunities and knock down barriers that are really artificial to service. But this was, I was very, very young, working on the Hill when Bill Clinton was running for office and campaigning to end the ban on service. And then in the Pentagon when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was created, and then in the Pentagon when it was repealed. And so there's lots of waves here. What's interesting about the story of Pat and Grethe is it really did help set in motion the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because what we had, it was 40 years, 20 years leading to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, 20 years to leading to the repeal of humanizing this story. And so when you get a story like Grethe's that got a lot of attention, that helps humanize this and bring the fear out of it for a lot of people. And then Cindy creates this film that tells another amazing dimension of this, and all that Pat did for Grethe when she was being boarded, and that all that Pat and Barb did together to sacrifice in order so that Pat could serve. And that's what I think is the most important part of the evolution of opening service, is people coming forward, telling their story and humanizing it.
I agree with you, absolutely, sir. And you spoke on the legal issue. So Ms. Newcombe, I guess I'd like to talk to you about some of the legal issues, how complicated they are. I know that Congress repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 2010. Then we allowed transgender service members in 2016. Then we regressed back in 2019. Would you describe the legal hurdles and the process associated with fighting bad military policy in the courts?
Well, Ryan, I'm sorry, but I'm not involved anymore, so I can't tell you the kind of permutations that are happening now. But I was really struck when Eric was talking that, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was the rule that was carved out to allow Grethe to serve. The senators who ended up pushing that through really only cared about Grethe at that time, and that was a horrible blow to the rest of us, even though we were delighted that Grethe would be able to serve. Before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, though, it was rigidly no person who identified as gay or had been suspected of being engaged in a same-sex relationship. So yes, at the time we were doing this case, we were making huge steps to get even to the level of having Clinton take notice of it, and when he first came to office.
And you said you took huge steps to get Clinton to take notice of it. Could you give us a little idea of what some of those steps were? I know that you mentioned Colonel Grethe, but there had to probably be something bigger moving behind the scenes if the president was able to get a handle on it.
Frankly, there were a lot of cases coming up right in the months before Clinton was elected, including John Meinhold and Joe Stephan and some other cases. And Grethe's was sort of the foremost. And Clinton took a position pre his election that he would revoke the ban. And so we all tried to get him to revoke the ban, and we ended up with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. That doesn't negate the power of the lawsuit that of Grethe's lawsuit and the victory we won. What I'd like to do is just point out that, without the way that Colonel Pat handled the hearing, we would not have been able to get the evidence in to the hearing into the administrative record that was necessary for the court to be able to rule in our favor once we got into the district court and above.
Ryan, if I can just jump in here for a little bit on the political side, because
Yes, sir.
Grethe and others who stepped forward galvanized the LGBTQ community, which then mobilized, which then raised a lot of money in that 1992 race. That got a lot of attention from Bill Clinton. I mean, I think he was, you know, in favor of doing what he did, but the community mobilized in that election, raised a lot of money and got noticed. But it took sparks, and Grethe was one of those sparks to get the community active in that campaign. And on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell issue, just politically, having seen it, because I was working for the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee during the campaign, who became the first defense secretary in the Clinton administration, Les Aspin. The groundwork had not been laid. Clinton wanted to end the ban. There were a number of people who wanted to end the ban, but it happened so quickly that the compromise, everyone fell back on the compromise, which we now know was a terrible compromise. But it took people like Grethe to help mobilize the community on this issue at a critical election that got a candidate, a president-elect, a president involved in it and set us on the path where we are today.
Which is such a remarkable story. And it's so amazing how there's so many different moving parts that really set the stage for it. Like you said, it's not just one component. And to get noticed, you really have to show people power. There's nothing more powerful than showing people power and getting together and standing up for the right cause. Now, Specialist Hernandez, I'd like to ask you, would you describe your experience as a lesbian in the National Guard and how the experiences of the colonels makes you view the service?
So I originally joined in 2016. So obviously it's a different generation at that point. To be honest, me being a lesbian never has impacted me in a negative way. My challenges were definitely different. If anything, as mentioned before, my challenges is being a female in the military, not a lesbian. And the reason why, I mean, especially in my current field, my MOS, I'm a military police. So in this field, there's not a lot of females. And so, I don't know, it's never, I mean, I know that for the men, for sure, it's a little harder. But for the women, it's kind of easier to come out and say, hey, I'm a lesbian. And it's all like, oh, not a big deal.
Can I ask a question here, Amy? I'd like to ask you, now that we have marriage equality and things like that, I'm assuming you're a single girl, but if not, if you got married, how would you be able to put in your marital status and how would you be able to get benefits basically for your new partner?
So I actually just got married here in May. So I'm recently married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've been with my now wife for about 5 years, and it's pretty easy. I mean, it's pretty equal. I mean, there's no difference for me to add her as my spouse. I'm getting my benefits. She has her benefits. So at this point, it's very equal. I mean, of course, there's always that scary part of it of not knowing where politics is going to change. And it's like, is it because I keep hearing all these rumors on how they can kind of technically reverse, you know, gay marriage and all this. I'm like, you know, there's always that in the back of my mind. So that's a little scary.
Thanks.
And those are things that we have to pay attention to. And that comes back to us making sure, just as what was mentioned before, is that we have to keep pushing that movement. We have to keep making sure that we're paying attention, mobilizing, really getting into the faces of people that are in charge and making them uncomfortable to say, hey, this isn't right. We have to take a stand on it. But I mean, to that end, I guess I would like to ask Colonel Pat and Colonel Grethe, where would you like to see our military in terms of policy today?
I don't think there's any question, but full open service for everyone, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. I mean, it's already been proven to be a non-issue. So this voting this year will be probably a big sign of the direction that we're going to go. If I could make one other comment before is, you know, you were talking about telling stories and coming out. And I think that that's where you give Mary and me a lot of credit. But if it weren't for the fact that Serving in Silence became a movie with Glenn Close and Barbara Streisand, and then the film Surviving the Silence is a way of getting sort of the story out there, but we are only individuals representing the thousands of others whose stories were not reflected in the media in the same way. So it is the documentary and it is the filmmaking that allows us to be visible in society.
And I think we all need something to look up to see where it all started or how the push was at one point. And the reflection of this story and looking at how you two came in contact and how one, you know, two lesbians, one's being discharged and the other one has to discharge you for being a lesbian. It's, I can't even imagine that emotional feeling. And I guess Colonel Pat, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Some more about the emotional feeling that you had when you realized that you just have to do this?
Well, when I first was asked to go and set the board, I said, no, I can't do this. And I was told that Colonel Cammermeyer had specifically asked for me to come, but I don't think she remembers that, which is okay, because I was glad that I could be there. I was glad that I could help in any way, and to, you know, because Grethe and I were both nurses, both colonels, you know, and so my heart just kind of went out to her, and I had my job to do, and so I did it as best I could, but it was very emotional.
And Colonel Grethe, did you know she was a lesbian at the time?
I didn't have a clue. And I'm really glad I didn't, because I don't know that I would have put her in that precarious situation. And I also didn't realize how important her presence in terms of allowing the process to take place so that my attorney could get the depositions necessary to be able to build our case. I mean, I was a client, but I was also a novice. And I'm really glad I didn't know. And it took several years after my discharge, when I was doing sort of university talks. I was at Davis University, and this short lady came up and handed me the business card and said, that said Barbara Brass and Pat Thompson. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had absolutely no idea. And that was the first time that I knew.
That is amazing, but it's fate, it's destiny. It was meant to happen exactly that way. And Ms. Brass, I want to hear from you. You're obviously younger than your wife, and you talk about that in the movie. But do you feel like that has, since with this experience, do you feel like it's helped build a stronger relationship because of that? I want to hear a little bit more about that.
Are you referring to our age difference, or?
Yeah, well, no, just your age difference, generation difference. I know you mentioned that in the movie a little bit. I want you to talk about how you feel like that's influenced where you are today.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I never had an issue with age, as I said in the film. And if in a relationship, if you can, I think, encourage your partner, your spouse, to keep an open mind, to keep on top of things, to learn. And I'm trying to do that all the time. I'm always trying to learn what's going on in my world and the world outside of my world. Prefer my own world because it's really pretty, but the outside world is where we really have to learn. And I think that aspect of the relationship has always been the case. I wanted to kind of jump back to what Aime was saying about the benefits for her wife, because Pat and I missed the deadline for signing up for survivor benefits package by 1 year. We were not notified. So a year went by, and that was when I could actually be on her benefits. We went over to the local military headquarters, and I went to get my ID card. I went to sign up and they said, well, you've missed the survivor benefits portion of it because you're a year late. The other part of it is the benefits that I do get, the health benefits. Amazing, incredible. It has allowed us to be much more generous in our world than we ever could have been because of all of that financial incentive that we have. I mean, not incentive, the benefit that we have with me being on Pat's military, medical, et cetera. So it's made a huge difference for us. But the survivor benefits is what we have still struggled with. We pursued it with our local congressperson a few years ago. It went nowhere. They said Congress had to open it up. And we also talked to Speaker Pelosi's daughter a few years ago as well. And that was in a time where the speaker wasn't the speaker, I think, at that moment. So it was hard to get things going, but it is that situation where we have to keep on fighting. And if Pat precedes me in death, I don't know if I will get any of those benefits. I don't know what the benefits might be, but that's an issue that we still have to deal with. And with current situation politically, we don't know whether we will still be able to continue me being on her medical and being her spouse. And, you know, that's a big, scary, ugly picture, as Aime was saying.
It is frightening. And I've been with my partner for 13 years. He's been there through some rough times. He met me right after I got out of the military. And thankfully the VA was there and available. And like you said, the medical care is great. Provide that structure. Not everybody has that, unfortunately. And to have the risk of losing that, yeah, you're right. We got to fight because we got to fight for those things that people don't normally think about, Ms. Brass. We definitely have to keep fighting for them. And Cindy, I want to ask you, because you had mentioned something about the way this moved you, and you heard the story, and you felt like you had to make a movie about it. I want to ask you more about that. I want you to tell us a little bit more about that. What was the thought process? What were some of the past experiences that you were able to correlate with it to really make this happen, and how you grew from it?
What was so fascinating to me was the love that Pat and Barb shared, that just deep sense of commitment from, I guess, year two, whenever Pat accepted the honor and the duty to go to the Pentagon for 3 years, and Barb couldn't go with her. And they had their own private ring exchange ceremony and considered themselves married, and figured out a way to keep that relationship alive, even while keeping it secret. Yes, Pat was just showing us her wedding rings, rings, because they have a couple. And so that was fascinating to me. What was also, so as I got to know them, and I didn't know this in advance, what also really drew me in was the concept of love, not just romantic love. I'm a diehard hopeful romantic, so that always, gets me. But the fierce love, the love that allowed Barb to put her life on hold, at least temporarily, what she wanted to be doing, being out there on the street, being an open lesbian activist, but she couldn't if she was going to be with the woman she loved. And so not only was she able to put that on pause for at least a bit, but also to not resent her wife. She obviously, when you see the movie, you know that she was angry at the military, she was angry at the rules, she was angry at society being what it was at that point, but she was never angry and resentful of Pat. And I don't know that I would have responded in that same way. So that was just absolutely fascinating to me. The other thing you were asking, what I learned along the way, was to watch the integrity that Colonel Pat Thompson showed as she was dealing with Colonel Grethe Cammermeyer's case. Because as we look at it now, 2020 vision, looking back on how things magically aligned, she had no idea that was what was going to happen. She had no idea that this was the strategy, if you will. She just knew that she wanted to do whatever she could in order to make the best possible choice. She could have come out and then poof, both of them would have been kicked out. She could have done the bare minimum, not knowing whether she was also being surveilled and evaluated for maybe being a lesbian as well. But she did the hardest thing, which turned out to be the best thing. And that to me speaks to her integrity and her commitment to doing her duty in the most humane way possible, and to allow Grethe's voice to be heard and to be heard on the record. And then the other thing was, you know, back to thinking about Barb, that she had to serve in silence, just as Pat had to. If she was going to be with Pat, she too was serving in silence. And often we don't hear the stories of spouses who are going through this, putting their own lives on hold and being 100% full in with their husbands, their wives, their partners. They have to be silent as well. And I remember it really hit me the first time I heard Barb say this from the stage, the first time they ever publicly came out, when she said, I learned very quickly what the role of a military wife was to be. Say nothing, do nothing, and be invisible. And wow, what a charge that is to take on.
And Ms. Brass, I presume that's not the case today.
It's kind of hard to shut me up today, but I was thinking back when Pat was in Washington, D.C., working at the Pentagon. I was able to visit her 2 or 3 times, and she was at work most of the time until the weekend. So I had some hours to get around the city. I did go to DuPont Circle, went to a bookstore, and there was somebody there from the Washington Blade, the LGBT paper, which is still in production, asking questions of people in the store just randomly. And I said, I think the question was something to the effect, if you saw or heard or something was anti-LGBT, would you stand up for that situation? And that was in 89, 87, 88, 89. I'm not sure which year. And I answered the question thinking that the way I think I said it was that I believe I would want to do the best I could to stand up and do what I could. And that was so long before I had the opportunity to really get out there. Even though I marched in 93, the Gay March on Washington, I was there. It still, I had to be more low key, but that, I thought of that article that came out, and I'm pretty sure Cindy must have seen a copy of it here because I saved everything I could, that my answer was that, but that was long before I had the opportunity to do what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now, I think is, and have been for a number of years, is standing up for the LGBTQ community for all of our lives, and along with other communities that are marginalized in our world, in our country, because we're just one of many that are in the crosshairs right now. And every marginalized community has to help each other. I think we really need to be a coalition of supporters and defenders, and that's where I want to continue to be.
And that is so important. And we need allies. We need each other. We need everybody just to take that stand. And Doug Mings, thank you for being here from the City of Phoenix Mayor's Office. We do appreciate all of our allies. And I just wanted to give you a quick second. I know that the part that really touched you was at the end when Colonel Thompson and Colonel Grethe found out that Colonel Thompson was a lesbian. I know that was like your wow moment. Do you want to just take a second and talk about it?
And I think you kind of captured part of it on the call here. It's one of those things where, like, how would that have changed your mindset if you knew that, if you didn't know that? But to be able to see 2 people going through something so difficult, parallel, but not knowing that, that was a really neat thing to see. It was a tough story, but it was neat to see that part of the tragic part of it.
But I look at it now and I see how the evolution of things have happened. I see the magic and the change that has come from it. And I want to say that, yeah, it was tragic at the time, but if it wasn't for all of you, we wouldn't be where we are right now. So thank you for going through the struggle. Thank you for telling the very important and powerful story. And thank you for keeping up the fight for all of us. Really, thank you so much. And I know that we're running short on time. I know we're really running short on time. So I want to just take a quick second. Colonel Pat and Ms. Brass, other than the Rat Pack, what else are you doing?
The Rat Pack keeps me busy online now. We have not been out. We're pretty well sequestered and hermetically sealed into our home and yard. And we're both active online with whatever we can do. We also have a group in our region here that works on collecting food and supplies for immigrants who are impacted by COVID. So we're a drop-off point here for that. And that's expanding, and I think will continue to expand. So we have little activities. I used to be making face masks when the pandemic started. I know that now everybody can get any kind of face mask they want, but when I started making them, none were available. The PPE that was needed for the medical profession and first responders was not even available. So I started making masks. I think I probably made about 300, but I've cut back on that because they're available now. So we do keep quite busy with lots of other things. And now we're doing a lot of Zoom interviews and this kind of thing for the film. And we really enjoy it a lot to see that the film is getting out there and people are getting to hear and see our story much better than we told it in person, I think. And we don't have to go around the world to make those speeches and travel and all of those things.
So I make a lot of phone calls, write cards and letters for people who are running for office that I know. And so I like doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I guess I would like to ask everybody a call to action. What would everybody like to see the public start doing right now as a call to action over the next year, 6 months, whatever it might be? I'll start out with Secretary Fanning.
Vote and get other people to vote. And I'm not going to say how to vote, but the more people we get to vote, I think the better it's going to be. I mean, I don't think there's any more important we can do right now in the next few days, 3 weeks, than make sure that we all have a voting plan and that we help other people have a voting plan, because there are a lot of forces out there trying to prevent people from voting and having their voice heard. So I can't think of anything more important than voting and helping other people vote.
Thank you, sir, so much for saying it. My partner and I are offering free rides to anybody in our local area that wants to go to the polling place. And we've had a few people reach out, but we're just trying to do our part wherever we can to make sure people have the means to get there, because you're right, voting is so important. And Colonel Grethe, call to action. I'd like to hear what you think.
Ditto. Vote.
Vote, vote, vote,
Thumbs
vote,
up on
vote, vote.
Right. And Ms. Newcombe, I will give you the floor.
Well, my biggest desire is to see people start to look at each other as humans and not as opposing forces. I think that it's become very, very destructive in this society, and I would really like to see people open up to each other, and especially to stop creating stereotypes about people that they don't know.
And that's something I still experience quite a bit. Even in my own local LGBTQ community, there's still a lot of unfortunate stereotypes out there. And we all have to take a moment and, teach ourselves, learn from other people and listen. That's the key right there. Don't think that you know everything, especially about trans community or about the people of color community. Sit down and listen to their experiences. Sit down and understand what they're going through, and really just take the time to learn how you can be supportive. Don't just say you are and then you never do anything. Listen first, be compassionate next. Help us all progress together. I'm going to go ahead and ask Cindy next. Cindy, what's your call to action? Don't tell me. Voting.
Of course. I think at this point, we've all heard it, Secretary Fanning, my good friend Eric, has said it very well. Also, I would say, take one step in the direction of living more openly and authentically, whatever that means to you. It might be coming out of the closet about being LGBTQ, coming out of the closet about being an ally. Whatever it is, take one more step in that direction. We've seen what Colonel Cammermeyer, Colonel Thompson, how they played a part in changing a policy that has repercussions till today. And we see what they did out of integrity and out of commitment and out of living authentically to the degree that they could in those moments. And if we will each do what we can do when we can do it, that is my call to action. Take one more step in that direction. Because
That's beautiful.
Don't Ask, Don't Tell still has an impact.
It certainly does, in a lot of different ways that are not always visible. And we have to recognize that as individuals, that there's still so much work to do. Gay marriage didn't get us there. Okay, we're not done. Now we have the transgender ban. Now there's other areas that we still have to fight for. So the community needs to wake up and realize there's still so many things that we have to help progress, especially for women. We see women's rights under attack more now than ever before. It's like a lot of the LGBTQ issues, everybody assumes they're done, so nobody pays attention to them. But women's rights, they're just as much under attack, and we have to, as human beings and as Americans, stand up and fight back against this tyranny. So the next one I'd like to turn it over to and ask for a call to action is Miss Doug Mings. I'm going to go for you.
You ready for a surprise? Everybody should vote. We should all vote. The person in the political office says vote. But I think also one of the things that this movie really shows the impact of is storytelling and telling your story and letting people understand who you are and what you have to contribute. And there's a part in Cleve Jones to the AIDS epidemic. People were very quiet about who they were, and when their friends were dying around them, they to heck with all that, and they would say who they were, and by doing that, they got to know who each other were and realized that everybody knows somebody, and telling those stories really makes an incredible impact. And I'm so glad to have learned this story in more detail, and it will be able to resonate with a lot of people. So tell your story and vote.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Ryan, I'd like to offer you the floor for a second to let us know what you think as far as a call to action.
I just want to say, hey, this was an awesome piece, and I was so blessed to be part of this conversation, you guys. So I really appreciate it. And I guess the call to action I would say is, take care of your veterans, because it doesn't matter what their background is, where they came from, where they grew up, what part of the world they came from. They all came to the United States here now, and we all served one time or another. And that important factor of, we're all together on that as veterans. And so we have to take care of each other, no matter the circumstances after we have completed our time of service. And it's really awesome to see the progression of time move on. And some of these injustices are not a problem anymore, and some of them still are. We're making those changes. And so it feels really cool to see those changes keep continuing on. And so I'm looking forward to the future to see where we go with it.
The future is bright as long as everybody does what? Votes! Let's go with that. Next, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Julie Roberts to give us some thoughts.
Great. I think that if I were to have an aha moment or whatever, I think it's that we all just need to take a moment and listen and accept people's where they are. That's just really important to me. It's like, maybe they need a little step. I think, as Cindy said, take just one more step towards with your families, with your friends, with your colleagues. It's just that one more step, because you never know how many steps they'll take to come and meet you, which is just, I just always like to be really optimistic. I guess it's time to say goodbye, to say thank you to every single one of you. It has been amazing. It was an amazing film, Cindy and Colonel Pat, Colonel Grethe. I can't tell you how amazing the whole thing was. but we are kind of at the end of our time frame here. I want to say thank you to all of you. And Aime, I want you to hang in there and keep fighting the fight. You're the youngest one among
Absolutely.
us. I'm going to be
Yeah.
long gone, and you're going to have to fight for things, okay?
I will.
Okay, you keep on fighting. I just want to say that today is the first day that the Desperado Film Festival tickets for your online viewing go on sale. You can purchase an all-access pass for next week. You can purchase just a single film pass for those of you who would like to do so, or you can purchase a five film pass. So within this next week, it's an exciting festival. I wish you were all here with us, because
That'd
then
be
we could
great.
hug you and kiss you and shake your hands and have a drink or meditate
Maybe
or
not.
whatever
Yeah,
you do. Maybe meditate, maybe. Alan and I are missing our cocktail party before the festival begins today.
Maybe we'll do an online happy hour later, Julie.
Okay, an online happy hour later would work really well. Thank you so much for our sponsors. Phoenix Pride has been a big help with us, the Paradise Valley Community College, and then the entire Maricopa County Community College District. Alan, is there anything else we need to say at this point?
Not really. I just wanted to give a shout out to my mom and dad. My mom was in the Red Cross, and my dad was in the Army, and my father-in-law is a World War II Marine vet who was on the third wave going into Okinawa. So it's pretty impactful story that he's got, and it's fun to hear what he has to say about being a veteran at 95. He just turned 95 on the 13th, so it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I know. He's got his flag outside of his house, and he's a very proud veteran. So thank you everybody for being here. This has been very enlightening for me and an exciting event, and thank you for being part of the Desperado LGBTQ Film Festival. Please help us promote the screening. Surviving the Silence is open for anybody to watch until Sunday night at about midnight. So they can buy tickets now, and then they'll have a window to watch it through the rest of the week. So, and this is available till the end of the festival, so people can watch this. So thank you for being here. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
It was such an honor. Bless all of you. And thank you all for your service, because it takes a lot of work to get things like this put together. So thank you.